Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the reigning world champion, the Terran in the blue, the Frenchman from Team Liquid. It's Clem, facing off against the fastest player in the game, and the former world champion Zerg in the red, the Italian Stallion. It's Reynor in a best-of-3 Terran versus Zerg showdown, where speed and precision will be in no shortage of supply. Just like hopefully we have no shortage of those of you willing to like and subscribe. And Jimmy, what are we? No cringing. 1,651 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do in my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better than the first Reaper, who failed at its job of blocking the third hatchery. Reynor sent out 2 drones, and even though that SCV came down to try to block it, Reynor preempted it. A Zergling will pay the price, but I don't think that's a vain sacrifice, as getting that third base up is not only important for your early production economy, but also your mental health, because that Reaper is does not spark joy as the Queens try to chase it down. Now, first Overlord backed into a corner. A lot of top Zerg players will try to sneak around that backside, but of course, Clem is very aware. Looks like he tried to snipe off the creep tumor. Didn't happen. And now a barracks, a factory, and a starport on the way. Behind 3 command centers for Clem. A classic tactic. The Destiny Cloud Fist build, the 1-1-1 barracks factory starport, has been a staple of Terran versus Zerg for 15 years of StarCraft 2, also known as over 2/3 of Reynor's life. Wow. Ugh. But it allows you to have access to pretty much any piece of tech that Terran could want. And by that I mean Hellions and Banshees, which are the 2 pieces they want. But you can go each direction on that tech tree and get all the parts of any sort of imbalance breakfast. And the Hellions, in order to keep control of the creep, and since Zerglings are by far the most common tactic to chase across the map, you have a basic counter there. Queens, not so good. They get a lot of joint pain off the creep, so not able to pursue. And, of course, the Banshees force those Queens to stay at home, potentially split the difference. And since nothing in the early game for Zerg can fly or even really have reliable anti-air, potentially pick off a lot of the units, on top of the fact it's going to be completely uncontested. The Zerglings might have wings, but they can only dream of flying, which is somehow more depressing than the Queens. Well, the Hellions slip by. Oh, evolution chamber block. Beautifully done by Reynor to shut this down. Boxes out the Hellions in an almost literal sense, and will prevent them from doing a lot of damage to the drones early on. Hellions come back, probably going to get repaired. A second barracks is already on the way as Clem is angling for that bio army. Reynor with a +1 Carapace rush. So keeping his options open, the Carapace applies to all Zerg units, and personally I think it should apply to Zerg buildings, but that just confirms my Zerg bias for many of you. Stop complaining, Terrans, wait till the end. 3 spore crawlers on the way. The Queens, though, politely yet firmly ask the Banshee to leave. It will be less polite the closer it gets. 3rd command center already landing for Clem. The Hellions on the edge of the creep. That is a lot of Hellions. 8 Hellions. A whole gang of Hellions here, looking to light things up. And the Queen's in position, but the Zerglings looking for the surround. A good grab, gets a couple, splits off, minimizes the lines of fire in the most literal sense. Comes around again, and down they go. Get off my face! So, the Hellions grabbed, ripped apart to shreds, I say. And Clem, a kind of uncharacteristic. He didn't even send in the Banshees. They were a little off-timed. Usually Clem, his speciality is those multi-pronged timing attacks. Reynor himself has described it as like just a Zerg-like swarm of flies. I'm paraphrasing, of course, because my memory is what it was. Moving on. But just putting on so much pressure and constantly being so efficient, making Terran effectively look as broken as the slightly hyperbolic clickbait titles usually are. Using every Terran unit to such a dramatic and almost impossible effect that it feels like he's essentially doubling the value of them. But so far, just normal value. The Banshees control the creep, taking out any stray Zerglings, keeping the Queens at bay. The Hellions, a gamble that doesn't pay off. So now Reynor has 78 drones. He's got 4 bases. He's got creep spread coming out from him. And he even is going to have something of an upgrade advantage, kind of. He's going straight towards Hydras with speed, which indicates likely he wants to attack. Usually you go Hydras with speed if you want to get aggressive early. Hydras with range first. If you're more on defense, it's the creep. No, Clem! Traitor to the cause. All right. Shoots his own medevac, which... And now loses another Banshee. Reynor going to be losing a couple Overlords, but a couple own goals here from Clem. And Reynor accomplishing his own as well. The Queen's trying to outflank, but... it's not going as great as they hoped. Meanwhile, the main base, already boxed out by the Zerglings. Reynor up 25 supply. His hive is on the way. Lurker Den as well. He isn't upgrading melee attack, nor does he have a Baneling nest. So those are the only real missing points here. But otherwise, the whole spread of Zerg, especially that you'd like for the late game, up against this M&M. The Marines, the medevacs, and it's going to be the Woodle Mines. 3 more racks on the way. The Queen's holding the line. And without combat shield, those Marines, not much of a contest there. The Hydras on the creep, chasing things down. Queen's coming in again, and oh no, the Frenchman ready to take him out, but so far the revolution will be stalled. Dropping some of the mules at the third base, and Reynor has stabilized his position. In fact, more than stabilized. He's looking to destabilize Clem's momentarily as the Lurker Den. See, he does have I thought I saw a Lurker Den. A Lurker Den is complete. He's building a second one. Reynor, just a slight sign of the pressure here. A Lurker range starts. Is he actually going to complete the second Lurker Den? Not a big deal at this stage. Really, the buildings themselves don't cost that much. But details definitely matter in this sort of matchup. The creep spreading across the map. The APM's raising. Almost to 10 a second on both sides. And climbing. Lurker range is a deciding point. With the Vipers gathering energy. No adrenal glands on the way for the Zerglings either. Which, if that continues, he could find himself in some deep shit. But adrenal glands an incredibly important upgrade. But not as important as Lurker range at this stage of the game. The Widow Mine slams into a dozen Zerglings, but the initial Marines are taken out. Clem with 125 army supply, but the blinding clouds potentially turn the tide. The Lurkers will burrow down, range 6 seconds out. A few Marauders mixed into the composition. Changelings providing extra vision, but so are the Creep Tumors. He can just yank the tanks into the fray. He doesn't even bother with it. Instead, thinking about, Parasitic Bomb on the medevac, quarantines it. There's a whole bunch of Widow Mines underneath as well. Ghosts in production. Another attack going off to the right side. Reynor with 2,000 minerals, but almost no gas in the bank. As his army is building up more and more complexity with that Vespene gas. The Lurkers trying to reposition. Clem cannot come through here. Transfuses come through. And, Queens patting each other on the back with Transfuse, and then walking right into the Marine fire. The hatchery going to be taken out. So far, Clem keeping the pressure on both sides, and has not broken or really suffered any sort of counterattack back at home. Zerglings, targeted by the Widow Mines, picks up and gets out just as the mines slam into dozens of Zerglings. The bank is building up for Reynor. I'm thinking about splitting and stimming and going for it here, but there is Transfuse available. This is a bit optimistic out of Clem. +2 Gareth is done. He tried to take the high ground, but he underestimated his power. Meanwhile, the Hydra is just pin-cushioning Marines over to the right side. Forces the pickup of the survivors. And Reynor's maxed out. Clem building up ghosts. Alright, the ghost count's starting to grow. And Reynor has not been able to get any counterattacks. Doesn't have a Nidus ready. If Clem has that critical mass of, well, as many ghosts as you could get. Well, let's maybe like 10. it becomes very difficult to attack by conventional means. And by that I mean just, you know, walk it across with lurkers and lings. But a Nidus, perchance. You can't just say perchance. Perchance, a Nidus, I smell. It is a Nidus, isn't it? Meanwhile, drilling claws drop the drones on the run, but that's not necessarily a good idea. Targets him down. Great defusal out of Reynor. Only loses 3 drones. Will clean up the mines. Meanwhile, Clem coming around the right side. Try to press in further, but the lurkers are already there. Plus 3 carapace on the way. Still no adrenal glands, but the Nidus is completed. And there we go. +1 melee and adrenal glands on the way. The adrenalings in production. Reynor still has... He actually doesn't have that many. 2 more Niduses. All right, more. 3 worms are better than 1. Exponentially so. Looking to put on the onslaught of Zerg. And meanwhile, the ghosts line up their shots. Lurkers slicing through the front line. But the shoots one of his own marauders. Make sure that it keeps the rest on edge. Oh, the lurkers eviscerate the Marines. A brutal experience, but not for very long. The lurkers are enough to drive back the drops. Yanks and the ghost, a dangerous game. Both ghosts, or both vipers, all vipers get sniped down. A lot of the ghosts as well, but Reynor losing that critical part of the composition. Building 3 more. There's a fusion core on the way right now, but Nidus right next to it might delay it indefinitely. Double Nidus at the back of the natural. Clem, does he have... He has the reinforcement, but 2 Nidus might be too many. 2 Nidus, 2 Furious. Triple Nidus in the main. 1, 2. Where's that 3rd one? I see... What? Does he have a Nidus back? There's Niduses everywhere. It's a campaign mission already. Here we go. Reynor with 6,000 minerals in the bank. But remember, each of these Nidus worms is 75 gas. And I'm talking about the resource, not... However, the Zerg one. Another one's going to be taken out. The Nidus defense teams across the board. But Reynor, 83 drones. Clem has established his 4th base. Very important at this stage of the game. The changeling's going to be taken out. How many overseers? 10 of them. We don't quite have the full oversight committee at the moment. We're not yet looking at the critical mass of overseers that you could just keep spamming changelings. And it's impossible to deal with them all. But we're getting there. And Clem keeps having to come back. Another Nidus and another Nidus comes out. The lurkers pop out. We'll slice through, but these ones will be cleaned up with relative ease. The triple Nidus timings. But none of them really finding success because Reynor has not been able to combine them with a direct attack on the ground. Clem is building up stronger and stronger defenses. Changelings gunned down. Traitors in our midst. Advanced ballistics. 3 more command centers on the way. Another Nidus. A changeling. Hey, you want a piece of meat, boys? Who is this? What is that accent? You ever heard of New York? Neo York? Shire? Lurkers slice up some of a Caduceus reactor. That medevac energy regen queued up. 2 more Niduses in the main and a 3rd one over to the 12 o'clock. As both players scaling up the aggression still. Clem forced to pull back yet again. But Reynor doesn't have that much gas in the bank despite the minerals throughout all this. Also, incredibly notably, why I'm noting it. Only +1 melee attack and no banelings. Not like he has a lot of gas in the bank here, but the lack of banelings clearly prioritizing the lurkers, the Nidus, and the vipers. Banelings themselves quite expensive on the gas. Yanking ghosts in and getting sniped. He interrupts the snipes with the abducts, but there's a few more ghosts back there, Reynor. Seems like a bit of an optimistic move. Another volley. Gonna knock out some. And the auto attack from the ghost is actually quite good. He's I can't. Abducting ghosts really just feel like it's not just letting the fox loose in the chicken coop. It's yanking the fox by a harpoon into the chicken coop. All right, and wondering why the chickens are all at least getting EMP'd. Okay, the analogy doesn't really hold up, and neither did the Vipers. There are 29 creep tumors in production right now. 9 lurkers. We got liberators being added on for that ultimate Zerg composition. No, ultimate Terran composition. The scan preempts a lot of this. Yeah. A Viking. A man of your talent. Lurkers getting transfused, but the ghosts are getting gunned down instead. Another musket line of ghosts will just chew its way through. Reynor not respecting this right now, not interrupting nearly enough of the ghosts. Do they even have cloak? I believe that was the cloak for the Banshees earlier. Meanwhile, in the main base, though, getting gutted by Reynor's army. Dozens of lurkers in the main. More Niduses to lock things down, but he's not able to deal with the bio ball. He's actually able to land some of the snipes. Liberators will drive back the lurkers. The Nidus worms may be able to help him escape, but he has no answer for the liberators. And no Spire in production to deal with them directly. The engineering bays will be taken out. They don't have building armor or high-sec auto tracking. But it appears a Venn diagram of freedom has locked down the main base. Parasitic bomb! Even more ghosts will die. Both sides suffering incredibly heavy losses over the last minute. Clem able to pick up more of them. Neither player able to maintain much of a bank. Despite the, well, for a while, there was a significant income. But now, Reynor, he's sitting on 5-6 bases. Clem, he's on an equal amount, but neither player has been reliably mining from their outlying bases. Reynor still with 4,200 minerals in the bank, but only 700 gas. He's lost 17 Nidus worms, which is over 1,000 gas right there, so it's becoming a costly endeavor. And so far, he hasn't really found a lot of success. A volley of scans from the 7 orbital commands, scouting all of the land, and making sure he's not caught underhand. It's lurkers in position. The Hydras might take out one of the orbitals. Dun, 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 dun. The Liberators, though, more than enough. It's at this point I once again ask you to go check out the Carbot episode on Liberators. Oh wait, you can pause. StarCraft's Liberators, because I'm feeling it at this moment. He's coming forward with the Hydras. 23-10 Liberators, Nidus in the main. That was about as much of a stand-up as we're going to get, but without a Spire on the way, the Hydra's wandering into Liberation range. There's +3 plating right now. The maximum effectiveness, he's yanking it. Reynor not matching the army composition here. Clearly trying to shove his way through, but Clem has driven him back, and now Reynor's lost 10,000 more resources. And that includes 5,000 more gas. An entire base and then some of Vespene gas, which certainly could cost him as time goes on. A Baneling nest on the way at 19.5 minutes. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but it definitely is. A Spine Crawler trying to bully a ghost, but the ghost bullies right back. A Liberator zoning out that location. I can't help but feel, oh, the rocks are going to be taken down and knock out the minerals as well. There they go. Hydra Lunge is now on the way. One of those oft-forgotten upgrades, mostly because it can hurt as much as it helps. The Widow Mines will cause Reynor to pay quite a toll through the center. Clem with a much more balanced bank, whereas Reynor's still very heavy on the minerals. The Lurkers are back in the main. Gutting the production won't necessarily change the game this moment, but set Reynor up for a much more efficient trade as time goes on. If he's able to take out a significant amount of the barracks and just the production in general, then Clem simply can't rebuild his army no matter how much bank he has. Not quickly enough to deal with the next wave of Reynor's attack. Assuming there is one, as Reynor continually losing a huge chunk of his army to relatively small amounts of units. Parasitic bombs will wipe out a lot of the HP and several of the medevacs outright. Wow, 5-6 medevacs taken down as Clem unable to avoid the damage. Lurkers to the north side with Nidus number 27 or something. Liberator looking to siege up again, but Reynor has somehow grabbed his entire half of the map. It is now working once again on Clem's. Clem with 18 Ghosts, 8 Liberators, and 10 Widow Mines, and also a few other units like SCVs and Marines, but mostly those things. Uh, 24. I thought I was exaggerating. No, was about right. 24 Niduses. Worming their way through. Slicing up some more parasitic bombs overhead. Reynor flatly refusing to consider a Spire. And he simply doesn't have the guess. He's lost so many Vipers. 9 Vipers, 3 more in production. Burrow. Widowmine not quite in place to deal with this. Whatever happened to +3 melee attack? I don't think he even started it. Working on some of the orbital commands. Very notably, Clem doesn't have building armor nor high-sac auto-tracking, which is actually quite a big deal against the mass Zergling run-bys. Reynor finding some more opportunities, but the Olympic Rings of Freedom here, the Liberators will finally be taken down, but it's quite a cut. Ooh, go. Oof. Can I get an oof in the chat? At some point, you gotta deal with them directly. You gotta meet them where they are. In the air. And Corruptors are pretty much the only tool we've seen have real success for dealing with that. Reynor with 65 drones to 35 SCVs, but since Clem is maxed out, that means 164 army supply. That's a lot of metaphorical and literal weight to throw around. Unlike Clem himself, of course, who's like tiny. And then less distance from his brain to his hands. That's how he. Oh no. The mine unable to lock on. The Widow Mine's doing a pretty good job. 31 kills for nothing. Couple drones. Wait, is there a Liberator? Clem finally found the space to get a Liberator out there as both players averaging 600 APM and rising. Clem with actually slightly more. You might be like, well, not all of that is useful. Oh, but enough, man. As clearly both these players under a lot of pressure now. Reynor continually bringing Clem to the brink. And Clem pushing Reynor back. Reynor's... Oh! Another devastating Widowmine. Oh my, the Zergling killed count continues to rise dramatically, and Reynor not rising to the occasion. I can't help but think this is trending away from him. As Clem, comfortable enough on just 30-something SCVs, he has 10 orbital commands. He can drop an entire stable of mules and still have more scans than a Costco checkout. All right, orbital commands. What can't you do? Now, get over here. Yanks in one of the medevacs, and then it... And now don't tell your friends what happened here. Wipes out some more of the Overseers. Reynor actually supply block now as the Ghosts continue lining up volleys of shots. Another Ventrio scan. 5 more Overseers on the way. More Overlords in production. Did he just shoot another one of his own units? Feels like Clem is warmed up a bit, though. More Niduses. Going up to 30 now. No Spire. Mass Nidus in the main. Continuing to work on the production. More Hydras getting caught. And Infestor, a Cyril Fester finally being thrown into the composition. Another volley. The Infestor's in place. He's in a liberation zone with both of them. But there's... Oh, it's time. Like, it's not going to get any better. You can't unburrow them right on top of everything, but... Reynor. What? Clem? He's so fast he can't... Oh my. And the Foggles! It doesn't get much better than that! He lunges forward! The Ghosts will be wiped from the field! And 2 Infestors have completely turned the tide! Dozens of ghosts. Well, 9 of them. Nearly a dozen ghosts are taken down. And Clem is wiped from the field and trying to rebuild, but he's only at 172 supply. That single move right there. A couple infestors, a wave of fungals, and a moment of Clem just not paying perfect attention to his units means that Reynor is able to turn it around. Starts bailing speed at the 26-minute mark. Thing is, though, it was trending towards Clem, which means I think he just evened it back up. Clem still has the ghost, still has the liberators, and he still has the mules dropping across the board. A couple more infestors on the way. The liberator gonna pick off half a dozen drones. More than that, 8 of them before it gets taken out by a spore crawler. More infestors on the way, +3 melee attack as Reynor fills in the upgrades he may not have noticed he missed. Clem with some more ghosts. 19 ghosts on the field. And 40 lost so far. 57 lurkers. What a brutal game for both sides. And we're not much closer to finding a conclusion. Though, as the income dries up, the first 4 bases are effectively mined out. And the next 4 are all that's left on either side. The gold base has less minerals. I believe only 1 gas geyser. Only 1. So really, more than half of the resources on the map are gone. It's probably about 2/3 at this point. Neural parasite? No. Not at the moment. The bio army over to the right flank. Very notably still, no Spire out of Reynor. Not wanting to use his army supply on that Spire, but it may cost him. The Widow Mine splits it forward. Blinding Cloud on the missile turret, which is something. Making sure he doesn't lose a Viper to a missile turret, which is very much embarrassing at best. But through all the fire and fury. Both these players dueling back and forth. The Liberator's positioning, repositioning at the wrong time. And now will be positioning in the unit's lost tab. An army comes up, Clem trying to outflank, but Reynor will be able to take out a big chunk of the army for relatively cheaply. He's still got more in the bank. A fungal attempted. He's able to back off in time. It was kind of a scramble to land it as opposed to a well-calculated timing. The Infestor was taken out almost immediately. Another wave of Changelings thrown into the mix. The Ghosts are able to line up their shots. Those Vipers are dangerously close to the fray. Another Overseer taken down. It's so much across the board all the time. But Reynor, the Widow Mines, landing massive hits, but still dozens of Zerglings streaming through. At this point, what are we even trying to kill? A Ghost holding the line. The orbital commands. Still no building armor, still no high-sec auto tracking. The Infestor! Fungal comes out. He catches a chunk. And a whole bunch of the Ghosts are going to go down. Another big win with the Cyril Festers there. So far, 50 Ghosts. 50 Ghosts have been slaughtered by Reynor. But, of course, they've gotten plenty in return. Reynor has lost 20,000 more resources, including 6,000 more Vespene gas. But he's also been able to mine a huge amount more as well. Another Nidus comes through. 33 Nidus Worms. Oh, my. They're both maxed out still. Clem at 176 supply. Brenda! We've had enough! This is a message from the hatchery owners. Oh no! Susan, are you okay? She's not okay, Lucille. The Queens are gonna get taken out. Yanks and some of it loses a couple more Vipers. Blinding Cloud doesn't interrupt the snipes. Planetary Fortress is taken down. But the Ghosts have enough depth here in order to continue landing the shots, and Clem takes another decent fight. Reynor now actually has more gas in the bank, but he's running low on minerals. A Zergling's gun down. Oh, wow! Across the board! Lands the Widowmine, hits. Picks up, gets out. But Reynor, he's down to less than a hatchery of minerals. And Clem is still building the same army. Ghost lining up their shots. Reynor building another infestor, but he's down to building individual units, which is not a great sign for the Zerg swarm. Splits against the Widowmines. A mostly untouched base at the 3 o'clock will be taken out. That lack of building armor is possibly the only saving grace at this point for Reynor. Relatively easy to take out those command centers. And Clem has barely any SCVs left. 179 army supply, but Reynor simply doesn't have the resources to compete. He's been just a bit too cost effective. And now the income tab is tilting back towards the Terrans with almost a full complement of mules in that top left corner. There's only so many locations left to mine from for Reynor. It's going to be harder to do so with 15 less around. He's constantly scanning, and he actually found one of the infestors. The things Terrans will do to avoid going to therapy or building a Raven. But at this stage of the game, especially with this much gas trying to micro a Raven, he has 11 orbital commands, all right? They're free once you've already built them, or own it for life. Reynor kind of coming to terms with the situation. One more fungal to rule them all. Okay, a Hail Mary. Maybe. But past that, he had those moments where he's able to land, chain together a couple, but they didn't translate into enough. He never went spare. Here they come! Huge fungals come through again, and Fester's taken out. He picks up with the rest, though, trying to chase this down. Widowmines, oh, ends up getting a decent hit. Spending a lot of time micro against the mines, trying to drag a few more out. And Reynor just has to keep going. If he backs off, it's just going to make it harder. 5 infestors on the way. I guess he's waiting for that, but the scan's coming through. The Baneling Mine! Oh, what a hit! Not enough to kill the ghost, but a big chunk. Baneling Mine used 34 minutes in after so much time. A perfect placement, but it actually takes like 7 Banelings to kill a ghost, so unfortunately only really useful against the Marines. Both players completely out of money, but the supply disparity is stark. The infestors looking for an opportunity. Lurkers are back on the agenda. Throws out a fungal. Another couple infestors EMP'd. Trying to come forward. Lines up some more shots. The Lurkers unable to interrupt them all. Another fungal catches a few more ghosts. But it's not enough. Clem survives the onslaught. And wins the game. Reynor kept that mid-game style, mid-game economy going. And he almost carried it through. 33 Nidus Worms, 1,000 Zerglings, 65 Lurkers, and 100 Hydralisks. Killing 65 Ghosts, 70 Widowmines, 20 Liberators. But not enough. He ended up losing nearly 30,000 more resources. Once he added the Infestors in, maybe. But it was a bit too little. And just a little bit too late. I think if the infestors were a couple minutes earlier, they can make the difference. But as they were just a stopgap. And Clem is not going to let you have that sort of time to recover. But still, up until the last couple minutes, a game that could have gone either way. Reynor got so much momentum early, but he just couldn't translate it into a winning position. We're going in to Ultra Love for game number 2. And I love Ultras. I think you love Ultras. Most Zergs do. Alright, an iconic unit, a cinematic unit. But reserved for it seems, because they just become ghost target practice a lot of the time. Especially against Clem. An exhausting game. And I'm not first, but close to the first on the list to complain about Ghosts and Liberators. Alright, I'm up there. But I don't think that game was an example of how easy it is to make Ghosts and Liberators work. Reynor clearly leaned on the Hydra, Lurker, Viper style, using Vipers almost like air banelings for parasitic bomb and abduct. He lost so much. The idea is to lose a overwhelming amount of units, but if you gain the position to stifle their economy, eventually you can smother them. And Reynor has never been the player who wants to sit back and nickel and dime the whole game. Alright, somewhat ironically, that's what he ended up having to do because of that stuff. But only because Clem, after he recovered from the early game, kind of settled down and played a more careful defensive style. Not necessarily Turtley. He never even had the building armor because of the Lurker backstabs. Triple Nidus on paper, great. But we don't play this game on paper. All right. And who uses paper nowadays? Wait. Back in my day, we used to write down build orders on notebooks because our parents wouldn't let us be on the internet at night or when they wanted a phone call. Okay. Not that either of these two players would probably know about that. Keyboard switch to English. I hate it when that happens. When somebody starts typing in English, I know I have a chance against them. Oh, interesting, because probably... but I don't know if the French keyboard, which I assume Clem's been playing on since he started out at 8, has different hotkeys set up or something like that, but I would imagine so, based on that tiny tidbit of information there. By the way, a 3-per start out of Clem. Reynor with a delayed Zerg speed against the 3-pers. I mean, by the time you know it's 3-pers, you can't really speed it up. You've already committed to your gas time. That's part of the strength of this build out of Clem, is you can kind of dictate the pace of the game. The downsides are that, one, you have to micro the Reapers, not an issue here, but also, it delays the rest of your tech. You're not going to have Hellions. You're not going to have Banshees, at least not nearly as quickly. If you lose the Reapers outright, you have almost nothing against a counterattack. There's a Roach Ward on the way at a conspicuous timing, 3.5 minutes in. Out of Reynor, so... Not sure what he's intending with that, but I don't think he's too focused on the late game options at the moment, considering Clem already has a command center. 3rd command center, nearly completed. And Reynor does not even have his 3rd yet, even though he's got a drone. 3, 2, 1. Still on the way. Gonna be the typical mass marine medevac follow-up. Here for Clem. +1 Carapace again, very interesting from Reynor. The +1 Carapace does give you that flexibility, whichever direction you want to go. I do think it's a big part of how Reynor likes to play. It's kind of a metaphor for his playstyle almost, where I'll take the hits, all right, and hopefully have enough to survive it and overwhelm you. It's not about each unit doing the individual amount of damage. It's about how many units, because quantity has a quality all its own. That's why you should like and subscribe. Two medevacs on the way. Combat shield. Where's the +1? No engineering bay. Just a straight up 2 medevac rush against defensive sloaches. Interesting. Already roach speed out of Clem, which is quite quick. I mean, Clem is again. I mean, no wait, no roach speed out of Clem. Reynor, our Zerg player named Reynor, which, unless I'm completely misremembering, the reason he's named Reynor with an E is because he was an 8-year-old Italian boy and didn't speak English very well, and that's how he assumed it was spelled. I don't know if it was... I don't know if he either didn't have subtitles on or never read it or didn't care about the campaign at all, but he just misspelled Reynor, which is probably good for branding purposes. Not that I would know, Winter, but the Marines come up, but... So, hey, you can't be here! This is restricted lair space by order of the Hatchery Owners Association. Okay, come back here! Hey! Well, not like that. That's your problem now, Edna. Oh, the roach counterattack will kill 4 SCVs, though the drop is still keeping things spicy back at home for Reynor. Infestation bit on the way. So, despite keeping things busy, this roach style, you just don't have as many drones. He didn't have a 3rd hatchery, so he's not going to have as many drones. That's how it works. That's how math works. Unfortunately. Yeah. Go away. Throws out the corrosive biles. One of the Reapers actually manages to get a drone, and most of the Roach army is chasing. A severe lack of it. There's only 2 queens to mildly inconvenience these medevacs. Infestors on the way. As Clem finally landing his 3rd base again. Tank setting up. Plus 2 Carapace already in production. Is there a hive? No. Yes. Well, on the way now. Reynor has the army supply. Doesn't quite have the overwhelming number of Roach Ravager to batter down the door, though. Double drop heading out. And Reynor finally thinking about a 4th base. A much lower economy game. As both sides trading blows. Fungal! And he can chain it. A 2nd one. He's going to wipe out the majority of the Marines. And by majority, I mean the entire complement. The Infestors hold him down and the Roaches knock him out. And a lot of map control removed. Yes, a very late Roach speed timing. I was right. So late that he hasn't yet finished it, but it will be coming up momentarily. Did not realize he didn't start it early. He just decided against it to prioritize the Roaches and the upgrades. And why not? The Zerglings to get in front. They're just there for the biomass to get gunned down. And an Ultraless Cavern on the way. As Reynor looking to leverage both the map control and the overwhelming economy he already has. Adrenal glands as well. Plus 3 Carapace. And Vipers behind. All the hive fixins coming together. And not a ghost inside. Not because their cloaking devices are extra fancy right now. In fact, he doesn't even have an academy. So Reynor lining up a very strong tier 3 timing. And Clem has yet to get a 4th base. Though Reynor's only at 68 drones, so he's not really swimming in the resources right now. nor is he even waiting in them. He does not have a pool of resources in any form. The only pool he has is the spawning pool, and now it's a bit at a slight risk. But the spores on the perimeter, it's actually going to let the Marines drop out. There might be enough here. Wasn't quite quick enough to deal with this. And some more Zerglings going to get gunned down, but Clem backs off. Drops down, parasitic bomb. Oh, that's dangerous. Didn't quite quarantine the right one. Fungals might be able to finish off the rest. Down goes one medevac. More drops coming up. The revolving door of medevacs, effectively. Like a merry-go-round right now. Knocks it down! And the Vipers! Oh, the Viper, no! The Vipers have not had a good series. They've been very important, very helpful, and very much on the front lines. Reynor losing dozens of Vipers so far. Honestly, I think I've seen more Vipers in this series than in like the last 10 Zerg matches combined. But they're very important. The crowbars of Zerg. Mainling nest is on the way. Chitinous plating. Nearly completed. Ravagers added in. Liberator demonstrating it technically has an anti-air attack. Technically. Another one. Sieging up. Spores. Setting up. And the Ravagers. Reynor. He actually micros away before Reynor can react. Awkward, but he's gonna get that one. Almost kills his own Overlord, but quite a push coming across for Clem. Liberator still just... This is like a domestic dispute over here as the Queen chases the Liberator, chases the Overlord. Nobody really doing damage to each other more than emotionally. The Corrosive Bile, though, definitely does. Another drop loaded up. A maxed out army for Clem, though it's actually smaller than Reynor's right now. Who, 72 drones, ultras on the field. Clem now trying to set up, hardening his shell into that full turtle Terran. 3 command centers on the way. The fusion core is in production. Second starport as well. And Ultra's closing in, but Clem, siege tanks on the low ground, getting a lot of damage done. Vipers looking for an opportunity, trying to figure out what to do in this fight. Parasitic Bomb going to be a strong choice. Parasitic Bomb on 3 out of 4 medevacs, which means one has a very tough job at the moment. Meanwhile, another drop. That single drop actually takes out the hatchery to the north and brings Reynor right back down to 4. Drops like 2 feet away, but Reynor maintains. Ooh, gotta be careful. Almost consumes his hatchery to death. Ultralist backs off, but the Bile Army, very cost-effective against the Ravagers if they're not able to land the Corrosive Bile. Watch out! Almost waltz into their own Corrosive Biles. But I'm keeping so much pressure on with these medevacs. There's severe lack of anti-air yet again. No Corruptors. Hatchery gets taken down. No cancel. Not a huge deal, but not a tiny one. Like a medium, small to medium-sized deal. But oh, double kill with the Corrosive Biles. Medevacs taken down and Clem scrambling back across the field. Routed by the Ultras and Ravagers. A single drop, the only thing keeping most of the reinforcements from chasing him to the ends of the earth. Does he have Cloak on the Ghosts? I believe he does. But does that matter? An Overseer's coming up. Blinding Cloud yanks in more Ghosts with the Vipers, and there isn't the critical mass to stop them. The snipes are split between the Vipers and the Ultras, and he wasn't able to clear out either one. Another volley of Corrosive Bile. Gonna double kill 2 more tanks at the 4th base. Ultra unchecked, chewing through the 3rd. The Ravagers will be driven back. The Vipers probably shouldn't be here anymore. But the damage has been done. Reynor has done real infrastructure and army damage. He's killed 13 SCVs. Clem doesn't have that iron bank, that half a dozen orbital commands or more, that you can just boost your economy with a stimulus package of mules. There are 6 more Ultras in production, and Reynor's still doing just fine back at home. He's taken the income lead, he has a dramatic supply lead, and the upgrades aren't too far behind. Adrenal Glands is done. And he still has enough Ravagers. Well, 3 Ravagers is the money number. Enough to take out the siege tanks, Widow Mines, or Liberators. Udamans only take 2, technically, but 3 is enough. Like, to be pedantic. Ultra's chewing through. Another orbital command is part of the wall. Almost taking down a few. Big job, huh? Ultra's gonna finish it. Udaman's taken out. Another couple Ultras dueling a planetary fortress. I think they'll eventually win this one, but the Ultra's trundling through, chasing down the Bio Army. Wait a second. The one SCV may save the day. He burrows the Ultra. I don't know if Clem noticed, but on both sides. Ultra's chasing him all the way into the main. There's not a wall as he walled off the natural. Clem refuses to die. 26 more SCVs dead. That Ultra burrowed that one SCV building. Some shots are lined up. Might be able to eventually knock out the Ultras, but he literally doesn't have the energy for snipe. The Queens are holding the line back at home. Reynor has a 100 supply lead and claims victory. The equalizer. Reynor ties things up with that tempo-based play he wasn't able to get done on Tokima. Carving open enough space that the Ultralisk or your mother could fit through, and finding himself all tied up with 1-1 against Clem. Never able to establish that early damage to Reynor. I think a lot more comfortable, instead of the rushing to Hive and 200 supply, a lot more comfortable with having the tools to do counterattacks and hit timings. There, he had the roaches with speed. He actually had less bases than Clem. But that meant he had the basis for a strong attack. And just to make things a little confusing for us now, we're going to switch the colors back again. Okay, the blue team has won every game thus far. So, at least it's not a mirror matchup. That's when it gets really annoying, but... Game 3. The decider. Clem trying to drag it out, and Reynor bashing through before he could hold the line. Both players with their more comfortable style. And it's not like Clem was idle. All right. Drops absolutely everywhere. But Reynor had enough army and enough economic momentum to carry it through. And building all that up while dealing with the constant and existential threat of medevacs. We haven't seen Reynor even think about a Spire. He's gotten most of the other tech. We've seen Mass Lurker, we've seen Ultras, but not even building the Spire. Not even when he has 10,000, well, nearly 10,000 resources in the bank in Game 1 did he think about a Spire. Part of it is many games are lost against the late game composition, both of Protoss and Terran, by building too many Corruptors. You've wiped out the air. Great job. Now what? You gonna try to make Broodlords by the time they, you gonna make Broodlords over the Ghosts and Marines? Good luck. Reynor clearly avoiding that scenario. Neither Corruptors nor Broodlords really fit into the style of play I think Reynor particularly likes. And that has always been both his greatest strength and arguably his greatest failing. He's not the most flexible player. He solves many problems by simply working harder and faster. Arguably stronger. But better? That is why Clem, I think, you could argue the tools of Terran give you an intense amount of flexibility. And I would argue that as well, but I'm not going to do so now because I'm going to undercut my own argument if I do so. But that's when Clem went from one of the most dangerous players to the dangerous player. I think when he finally... Because he used to play much like Reynor. Almost every game, no matter what. Trying to get those medevac timings done, microing Marines and Reapers, and probably transitioning into the late game a bit too late, if at all. And becoming predictable and potentially losing because of it. But since he accepted the necessity and the advantage of going to that late game army composition and becoming more experienced with it, that's when he went from a potential, like the most likely player to have an upset or to upset one of the top players to the player who gets upset. And I don't just mean rage quitting, I mean like the favorite to win against pretty much everyone. The Marine? Where are you going? Just walk it. All right. Totally not select all army hotkey. All right, run on home, Billy. I'm going. Starport on the way. Going to be a very similar build. This time around, Reynor, with a third base and links. Not okay. Not the same though. We got a lot more Hellions mixed in. He actually hasn't started there we go. And a Liberator in production. So no, not a very similar build. Very similar buildings. But getting all those tech buildings early allows that level of flexibility. It's going to be a Liberator alongside the Hellions. Clearly Clem trying to get a bit more pressure early and not relying on putting all his Marine eggs in 2 medevac baskets as the early game option. Roach Warren on the way. Reynor leaning on the roaches again, it seems. No evolution chambers. And no engineering bays either. Both players going to be getting very aggressive. Well, relatively aggressive. Because they're prioritizing spending on army as opposed to things that'll pay off later down the line. Queen softening things up, but right in the middle of the liberation zone. The drones are pushed away. The Queen's distracted. A couple big Brenda bounces. Oh no! Brenda! Get back to creep. Double Evo chamber on the way. Clem following this up now, throwing everything in the medevacs. Reynor boxing it all out so far. Roach is on the way. Anticipating this sort of follow-up. There is no armory, which means Clem won't be trying to build Hellions or use Hellions, which is good because Hellions are terrible. I mean, Hellbats, rather. Hellions are great. Hellions are just when they get all washed up and slow. So, like, some of us. Reynor losing Overlords and getting supply blocked at an incredibly inopportune timing. Manages to slip a few Zerglings by. The Overlord. Oh, calm down! Overlord taken out after being ignored by the Queen. Some interesting move from Reynor. +1 ranged attack and Carapace for Reynor, whereas a 1-1 infantry weapons and armor, of course, on the way for Clem. Reynor unable to bat down the early medevacs, shut down the early pressure. Clem with a much closer supply this time around at a similar timing. Roach speed is on the way. Without Roach speed done, it's very hard to outmaneuver these medevacs, especially without creep spread. And Clem actually finds an opportunity, and he will strike. Targets down the roaches. There aren't enough units to deal with this, and Clem takes a very cost-efficient fight after taking down the base. Meanwhile, the Queen's brawling it out. One of them gets incinerated. Oh my. Just fighting the roaches again, Clem knocks out the hatchery in, a series of incredibly unfortunate events. That high ground location, a real pain to deal with, but with roaches, it isn't the end of the world. There's more than enough roaches now, but Reynor definitely taking an awkward trade against the Marines and medevacs and hasn't really touched the medevacs themselves. The Lings, enough of them to surround and get a critical mass on those Marines. Hydraless Den is about to complete. Hydra's coming in, or Hellions coming in towards that southern base. +1 ranged attack and Carapace nearly completed. And Clem hasn't started his 2-2 upgrades. Well, okay, stop listening, Clem. Oh my. Infestation pit is on the way. Reynor working his way up the tech tree. Quite a slow progression this time around. Infestors and Hive going to be well behind the timing that Clem is putting together. But the tanks are not sieged. The Zerglings coming around the back. Going to try to minimize the damage. Big tank hit, but knocks out at least one of them. The rest not sieged, so it could be picked up right at the start of the fight. Hellions coming in, but Hydras and Lings boxing them out. Reynor actually pulls the entire army away. A select all army. Oh no. And that means he gives up that position on the edge of his 4th base. And that may cost him a bit of momentary... I mean, he's still going to clean this up. Just not quite as, well, The Zerglings not with the fight, not able to absorb the extra hits. The Queens try to hold it together, but the Marines fire much faster than that. And Clem has the supply lead. The Hive is still a long way off, and Clem is working on an incredibly cost-effective unit composition. A bunch of dudes with drugs and guns, and they're stimming forward, just targeting down everything in front. The Zerglings, now there's none there to defend, and suddenly Reynor being cut down by a hail of high-velocity bullets. There's too many of them. We cannot get out. Clem is coming. Oh no. Reynor, a moment of, just a moment when he sent the entire army away is going to cost him. Clem struck with a good position, and this is the kind of fight that just a few inches and they'll take a kilometer. The supply with Roach Hydra being underwater is certainly not an ideal place to be, and now the 2-2 upgrades are closing in. Even without him, Clem has a winning position here if Reynor doesn't turn it around nearly immediately. +2 infantry weapons and armor. Target firing the Hydras with the Widow Mines. Can't take out the siege tank. Medevacs for all the Marines. The Hydra's chewing through, but 2-2 is done. And Reynor, he doesn't have the Ravagers to take out the tanks. The Hydras and the Lings to do anything else. He's trying, but he's trickling in when he needs a flood. It's not enough. Clem takes the series 2-1. Grinds through, strikes at the most, he created the opportunity to close it out. And that's all it takes. Especially when you're pushed back to your bases as Zerg and your rally point is right there. Just trickling out the units, desperately trying to defend your base. It's not enough. Clem keeping the pressure on, and Reynor slipped just a bit, and it cost him everything. Quite a series. A back and forth across the board. Some of the one of the longest and most dramatic games. And then a couple more decisive ones. But Reynor's still hanging with Clem, but Clem the man to beat. Hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. I hope it made your day just a little bit better. If you got the means and motivation, it'd be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free for now. And thank you to our Mule Tier patrons for bringing in those extra minerals. Big Jiggy, Devin Door, Kate, Mario, Random Guy, Suit, to everyone. Glad you still enjoy. And if you haven't, it's been a little bit now, but you should watch Clem versus Reynor. But they switched races. And see how Reynor handles Terran against Clem Zerg. That's from a few months ago. Like maybe 5 months ago. Time flies. Just in general, really. Unlike Queens. Thank you for watching. Hope it made your day a little bit better. I'll see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.